Okay, we'll get started so we don't push this off any further than we have to. My name is Mike Sol. I'm the Director of Public Assistance for the state of Mississippi. And y'all are here because you have involvement in the recent emergency declaration 3582. This is going to be the water crisis. So if you're not here for that meeting, then we'll find you someone to go to. If you have any questions, we're going to address them at the end. Also, we're going to identify the individuals for the state who are going to be dealing with the specific agency you're with, if you're with a state agency, a local agency, or a private nonprofit. And we'll break those groups out so you have a little bit more one-on-one time. You'll get to meet the person that you'll be in constant contact with, and that way that information can move a little faster. I will let everybody know there's a gentleman back there with a big camera, and he's going to be recording it. We're going to be recording it in case someone decides later on that they're going to be a part of this. Discover they have damages, whatever the case may be, we can forward the link to them. They can watch the video. Then they can get involved in this program later on once they get into as long as they're in the time frame. So with that time frame word being used, I want to make sure everybody understands if you want to be a part of this disaster, there is a deadline. It's 30 days post-declaration, declaration being the 30th of August. So by September the 29th, please, everybody, put your RPA in. We will have a few slides on how to do it. It's very simple. Also, we have the paper copy of the RPA here. You can do it here, but we really want you to do it electronically so it can be tracked through the grants portal system, the FEMA system. We'll talk more about that too. So, I tried to be cool and not put glasses on, but I'm going to have to go to it. Next slide, please. So, if this is the declaration page, we'll have a copy of it online so you can see that anytime you need. It just gives the basic information here. And you will have a program delivery, FEMA program delivery manager assigned to you, as well as a state representative assigned to you. And they will help you through this process. If you have questions, that'll be your first point of contact. If you have concerns whether something's eligible or not, contact them. There's some things in this disaster we may have to elevate that question up to see if it's going to be eligible or not. Contact them. Let them know. We'll run it through the chain, and everybody will get on the same sheet of music. We'll introduce everybody here in just a little bit. So the only county for this disaster is going to be Hinds County in the declaration. So by being here, you have some interest in Hinds County. So that's going to be the only counties in this declaration. The incident period is continuous. We haven't closed that, so we don't have a good, clear picture of when that end date will be. But as all good things must come to an end, it will be coming, and we'll let y'all know that that's going to happen. And just so I feel better about it, I'm going to throw the September 29 deadline of getting your RPA in again. Please keep that date underlined multiple times. So, next slide, please. The supplemental financial assistance is public assistance definition is supplemental financial assistance to state and local governments and certain private nonprofit organizations for response and recovery activities required as a result of a federally declared disaster. Funding is a cost share. Federal share will be no less than 75%, and of all the eligible costs that are in that project worksheet. So I'm getting ahead of myself, so I'm gonna go with the slides. I get too fast. Go to the next slide. There is a more detail to this 75%. Governmental agencies such as yourself, the state, the counties, the municipalities will participate at 75% federal share with a state share of 50%. That is whatever that federal share is going to be. The non-federal share, the state of Mississippi pays a 50% for state, county, and municipalities. For a private nonprofit, there is no state share. So the 25% outside of that federal share will be all that's received in the PA program for a private nonprofit. Next. This is a reimbursement program. So we have to identify the funding. We have to see that it is spent so we can reimburse it. There has some changes coming down the line with FEMA. We'll discuss that more. That kind of allows us to move a little quicker on it, but this is a reimbursement program. The eligible share will be available to recipients. Grantee, that's the state of Mississippi, for disbursement to the applicants, applicants being you in this case. So once the project is obligated, it will funnel through us, and then we will reimburse at a reasonable time frame, as quick as possible. Public assistance is not assisted to local population for damage to private homes, commercial property, local business, etc. It has got to be a facility owned, operated by this PA eligible applicant. FEMA manages the program, provides technical assistance, and approves grants. State recipient educates applicants, works with FEMA to manage the program, implements, and monitors the grant award. Applicants are yourselves, identify damages, provides documentation, and manages funded projects. So, what is an eligible cost? So, in the pyramid, first you have to be identified as an eligible applicant. Most of you are here because you participated in the program before, so you're an eligible applicant. The facility, it has to be an eligible facility. You have to own it. It has to be something under your control. The work has to be eligible work, and the cost has to be reasonable. Next. So the eligible applicants, again, state, in declared counties, city, town, village, declared counties, other political subdivisions of the state, Native American tribal governments and tribal organizations, and certain private nonprofit organizations. Next. So let's dive into the PNPs. We're going to blow through this really quick, but when the breakout sections happen and you're in the PNP, we'll get in more depth there. So you'll understand exactly what we're looking for to be an eligible PNP. The PNP must show that it has a current ruling letter from the IRS granting tax exemption under 501c D or E, or the Internal Revenue Code of 1954. Or, and I'm writing y'all's way, documentation from Mississippi Secretary of State sustaining that it is a non-revenue producing nonprofit entity doing business under the state law. Two categories of PNP recognized by FEMA is you're going to have critical services. So the examples of critical services are your fire emergency rescue, medical treatment, power, water, sewer, utilities, communication system, and educational facilities. Non-critical museums, community centers, libraries, houses of worship, senior citizen centers, zoos, daycare centers, etc. Non-critical essential PNPs must first approach Small Business Administration for disaster loans for permanent repair before applying to FEMA. So we go to the next level of the pyramid, which is the facility. Expenses as a result of the declared event located within the presidentially declared area be the legal responsibility of the eligible applicant and not be under the authority of the federal agency. No federal agency is a participant in the public assistance. That is other means of funding through that. So there's no funding under the public assistance project for federally funded projects. So the types of work for this disaster is going to be a B, category B only, which is the emergency protective measures. We'll pass out some examples and information, but it is what is going to be, go to the next slide, considered the emergency work to restore. So examples would be to save lives, to protect public health and safety, protect improved property, eliminate or lessen the immediate threat of additional damages. Again, in our breakout sessions, we'll get into a little bit more depth if you have specific questions on how that affects you or your agency, your city, your town. We'll get into more details of that if there's any questions. And again, this is a little different, so we're going to be maybe challenging or looking into what will be exactly eligible, and there's things that we may have to get some more clarification on. So work with us, be patient with us, We will get you answers, and we'll move on with this event and try to get everybody as back to normal as humanly possible. So actions taken can be and not limited to Emergency Operations Center, the warning devices, search and rescue, security forces, provision of shelters or emergency care, sandbags, emergency repair, generators, and the push of debris. Not really going to be a debris incident, but just for future knowledge, it's the pushing, clearing the roads of the debris, not the actual disposal of it. Category Z project is a project that FEMA will write if you have costs to administer this program. It is a capped 5% for our grantees, sub-grantees. So, but this is the biggest thing I want everybody to understand is you will have to track this. And it could be something as simple as a calendar. Just write your hours that you're performing work for this on a calendar. And then we can back it up with time records, and we can back it up with pay stubs. So you do have to track this cost, but it is a capped cost at 5% of all your eligible projects. To be eligible for reimbursement, costs must be reasonable, necessary to accomplish eligible work. A cost is reasonable if it is in nature and amount it does not exceed which it would be incurred by a prudent person. And under the time the applicant makes the decision to incur the cost. So we know things are going to increase. There's going to be a supply and demand. So we can recognize that. We can work with it. But it has to be prudent, and it has to be reasonable in that time frame that we're dealing with. It has to also comply with federal, state, and local laws and regulations authorized and not prohibited under the federal, state, territorial, tribal, or local government state laws or regulations, consistent with the applicant's internal policies and regulations procedures that apply uniformly to both federal awards and other activities of the applicant. And we're going to kind of roll into now, Mark, I believe the next slide is going to be continuation. Include deductions of insurance proceeds, salvage value, and purchase discounts. So all that to say, FEMA is the last line of payment. If you have, this is not going to be typical for this disaster, but if you have an insurance reduction, you have discounts or anything that's going to be out there, it's got to be taken off that top line before FEMA comes down and gives you us a total. It's the last line. It's the last. If you have a salvage value, if you have anything that can be to reduce that, it's that last total line item down there that's going to be eligible for that FEMA project worksheet to get funded at the end of the day. In this disaster, is insurance going to be a big factor? I don't know. Maybe there's that 0.1% out there that's going to touch on it. But anything that we have, keep that in mind. It's got to be that last line item. So going into some of the costs, example of cost, we have force account costs, and they're broken down to labor. This is your employees and your the people you have on staff doing work for you. NAB, it's only eligible for overtime. So I like to use an example. FEMA will come in and under B, it's whatever you're not budgeted for, right? If you don't hold a budget, a line item budget, that kind of goes into the factor of what is eligible for FEMA reimbursement. So your overtime, your regular time is budgeted, just for an example. So to get to a B and get it as an eligible expense, you got to show it's not a budgeted item. So overtime typically is not a budgeted item. That's something you incurred above and beyond normal day to day because of the event that's in question. So it's only going to be the overtime. Materials, the cost of items used from applicant's inventory and for items purchased to make authorized repairs to meet the scope of work are eligible. Applicant on equipment. The costs associated with equipment used to perform authorized repairs, all operating equipment are eligible, should be supported by labor time sheets based on FEMA and can be based on FEMA's schedule of equipment rates. We can share that with you. If you want to have that rate, we can. It's public available. But if you have trouble finding it, we can get you a copy of that. So I do want just to point out real quick, if you are claiming equipment and that equipment requires an operator, we're going to have to match those two up. So if it's a vehicle is not a billable item unless it's in use. If it's in use, it's got to have an operator. So we have to be able to match that operator up with that piece of equipment so that it can be deemed eligible. Now, obviously, a generator, I mean, other than some maintenance, it runs independently. So, but if we have a piece of equipment that we're going to claim and it requires an operator, be sure that we're thinking that far ahead that we have got to keep an operator assigned to that piece of equipment while it's in use. Thank you. Two types of projects. And this is where I'm going to touch on a new FEMA ruling, and I'll introduce some of our FEMA friends later, but y'all correct me if I've got anything wrong. It's relatively new. Small projects and large projects. So it used to be where we had a smaller threshold on the differences between a small project and a large project, but as you'll see, it is now $1 million to be classified as a small project. Under $1 million is a small project. Now, what does that mean to you? Well, I'm getting ahead of myself again. It has to be above $3,300 to have a project written. If you have anything less than $3,300, it will not qualify to be a project and be obligated. So it has to go above $3,300, and it will be below $1 million, and it'll be considered a small project. Above $1 million, a large project. So, small projects, we are not required to get as much supporting documentation at the end. At the beginning, to have the project obligated, we will need good substantial information to prove the project is following all the other eligibility criteria. But we are able to get some funding out a little quicker. That being said, because we're not getting that supporting document at the end of the day like we do with a large project, it does not remove the fact that you need to be tracking it, you need to be keeping it, because someone else with another agency can come in at any time and ask you to audit that project because you're receiving federal funding. So don't think that nobody is going to look at it again, because it is a possibility somebody could. So be sure that you're tracking your own cost, you're keeping that, and it's going to be kept for a certain amount of time, and we'll cover that in a little bit. So small project funding is based on work completed or initial cost estimate. Federal cost share is paid upon approval project, and when the cost of work is less than $3,300, work is not eligible. Large projects, initially approved based on estimated cost. Funding is based on documented actual cost. Federal cost share is paid as work is accomplished. Threshold is $1 million. So a lot of this disaster, I keep saying it's going to be a little different. Most of our work is going to be work completed, work that we have already accomplished, and we're going to be able to put actual cost to it. So there's going to be occasions that we're going to have to maybe estimate and push some things out on estimations, but I don't see that being the rule. I think it's not. I think it's going to be the other way around. We're going to be able to accomplish, and calculate good cost. Time limits for project completed begins on the disaster declaration date, and the emergency work must be completed within 90 days. You'll hear a period of performance as one of the many FEMA acronyms. That's going to be 90 days. So that work needs to be completed and wrapped up. Is there any options? We'll have to get that up to a level above us to get any options on extending that date. But right now, that's the date we're looking at. And I would love everybody to really focus on. And if we can get it done, let's get it done here and not have to ask for forgiveness later on in the date. Special considerations and issues. I almost took this slide out because a lot of things just do not affect this disaster due to its nature. But we'll go over real quick. Insurance, like I said, last line of payment is going to be FEMA, so that's going to be insurance is going to be one of those last lines of payments. If you do have any kind of insurance proceeds for anything that you're going to claim, it needs to be drawn. Insurance information is going to need to be provided, and we're going to need to get an idea of what that payment might be. Hazard mitigation, that's hardening of structures and hardening of anything to prevent future disasters. Environmental protection, that would be any earth disturbances. Anything that can affect the environment adversely will need to be identified and checked. Floodplain management, historical preservation and cultural resources. These are things that could come into play. Again, I think it's a very likely chance that we won't see these factors come into this, but just so we're all in the same sheet of music and everybody's prepared for possibilities. Next. Again, insurance, actual or anticipated, will be reduced from the project worksheet obligation. And if there is an insurance recognized, there will be some obtain and maintain if they pay you for something. For example, during FEMA times, when something was damaged and they didn't have insurance on it, they would put an obtain and maintain of insurance. That would guarantee that whatever the federal government paid, so they gave you $100,000 to repair the roof of the city hall, that FEMA was getting guaranteed that their $100,000 investment will be protected going forward. And the next event, they're going to be looking at that. I say, we gave you money for this. The next event, we're going to pull it back up and say, no, if you got $200,000 of roof damage on this event, they're bringing that $100,000 right back off, saying, no, we've already told you had to have that $100,000 previously given to you protected. So don't really want to go down the rabbit hole with that too much because of the likelihood of it not being a part of this disaster, but just to give you an idea. Record keeping, I kind of touched on this a minute ago. It's going to be real important that you keep your own records. That your force count labor, your force count equipment, materials, rented, contract. If you've done a large project with us before, you know what we're going to be asking for. We're going to be asking for this information in detail. I don't want to drag this out by getting any kind of specifics right now, but we can talk about it in our breakout sessions. We can also talk about it one-on-one with you if you have any questions. But please maintain these records. There is a likelihood somebody could come by at some point in time, and I just don't want you to get caught off guard. I'd rather tell you that it could happen instead of not saying anything at all. So be sure to keep this information on hand. And the time frame mentioned before is a minimum of 3 years after the closeout, the applicant closeout. Not when the project's closed out, not when your project's completed. When we close you out as an applicant in this disaster, that's when the clock starts. That's when the 3-year clock starts. So just be mindful of that. The minimum is 3 years post to being closed out of the project, of the disaster. So we're going to dive back into force count labor. We'll kind of spoke about it a lot early on, but we'll breeze through it really quick again. Applicant's payroll policy, applicant's benefit calculation worksheet, the applicant's complete employee list should include the rate and whether they're exempt or non-exempt employees. Timesheets, payroll records, copy of canceled checks, and proof of direct deposit. So we're going to have to show that they are working there, what their policy is for working there. We're going to show that they were physically there that day and time through timesheets and payroll records. And we're going to, since it's a reimbursement program, we have to show that they were paid. Okay. Force count equipment. So we need to have that equipment listing. We need to know the documentation sheets on that equipment. So what does that mean? It could be the horsepower of a skid steer that you're using to clean up, to unload and load. We need some information on that piece of equipment. We need, going back to the employee, we need to match up because a piece of equipment such as a skid steer has to be in operation. It has to be in motion before it becomes eligible. We need that piece of equipment moving. So we need to identify that somebody's in that piece of equipment and we need to match them up. And then again, we mentioned the FEMA schedule of equipment rates. Reach out to whoever you're assigned and they can get you that if you have a hard time finding it. Force count materials, I think will be a big one in this one as well, is going to be materials used such as water, signage, things that you're pulling out, that you're going to have to purchase or pull out of inventory to use. So we're going to need that summary record. We're going to need applicant's material inventory list dated prior to the disaster if you're using something that's in stock. We have a materials requisition sheet if available, and invoices for materials purchased and put in inventory, and copies of checks paying the invoices. So that is another item that can be included into this disaster, Mark. So with all that, we're going to have to buy stuff, right? We talked about materials. There's things we're going to have to purchase. So procurement's going to be really important. Make sure that you're following procurement for your agency, your organization, the state, as well as federal. If you have any questions, I do not have a JD. It is not one of my strengths to follow procurement, but we will get you an answer. We will get that up to someone with a JD in their name who can give us a ruling on it if there's any question. Now, this is a lot going to be done through emergency situations, so there's going to be that considered into the whole thing. So, but if there's any questions, if you want to go to this website, again, this will be videoed. This will be on our website. If you have anything you want to come back and look, you can also email any one of us that you'll meet today, and we can get you this information. But you can visit this website for a short FEMA presentation, or again, you can just let us know, and we'll elevate it. We'll get you we'll get you an answer to it. That means a lot more than my word, I assure you. Thank you, Mark. So rented equipment, we'll need that rental agreement, we'll need the invoices, and we'll need the proof of payment. That proof of payment, reimbursement, invoices to prove that you had it, and the agreement that shows that the eligible applicant at the eligible facility in the eligible area did in fact get that piece of equipment. We have appeals. If you think something's inappropriately assigned or inappropriately a determination memo was received that you feel like it should have been accepted, there's a 60-day window, and then to get it to us, 60-day window for us to get it to FEMA, and then there's 2 levels of appeal, a first appeal and a second appeal. So, because I think it's worth it, we're going to beat you to death on this 30 days. Get the 30 days in. September 29th is the deadline on that. We really have very little wiggle room to get anything going after those 30 days. So please, if you have any interest, if you even think you might be interested in this, put in the RP in the 30 days. It's super important if you want to be a player in this. We've really had some people miss out on a lot, and I don't want anybody to miss out on anything that they legally can get. And 60 days is going to be after the recovery scoping meeting. We'll discuss that in a minute. 60 days, we want to try to get everything in. We want to have a good identification of what is your damages and what that line items are going to be, so we can go ahead and start formulating the project. Why is that important? We want to get you your money back. We want to get you some money to stop the hurting, because y'all are all here because you're feeling the effect of this in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So Grants Portal. Grants Portal is going to be the database that's a FEMA product and that we use for our disasters. We're getting more and more and more that we're going everything through this Grants Portal system. If you're not signed in, do not have a logon information, you can get with us. We will connect you with the right people. But it's grants, grantee at FEMA.gov, Grants Portal, and this is what we're going to be working through. We will have a hard copy RPA, so you can put in an RPA here right now, but I really would like to see everybody go through here so we know that you've got access to it. We know that you can function through this, and we know that this is going to be a project that you're familiar with it. So please do the RPA through here, but I encourage you to fill the paper one out just in case something happens. You can't get logged in on the 30th day, and you're calling me on day 31 going, I missed it. Well, I got a hard copy here that I can go to FEMA with and say, I've got something here for them, so I can get them involved, get you involved. But please do this just to ensure that you're in the program. So it's fairly simple to log in. To do the public assistance request. Once you get logged in, you click. There'll be a big button. There'll be submit your request for public assistance, and then once you hit that, it'll walk you through the next steps. And this is what it will look like. little button. But there should be, on the main page, there will be a large banner that is not there on our example. So if you have, again, if you're having any problems, reach out to us. You'll get individual information and email addresses from the folks you'll meet today. Recovery 1 is one that's monitored, and if you know anything, you lose one of our representatives' email address, you can reach out to this one, and we can get you lined up with who you need to be with. It's going to be organization, tax ID number, DUNS number, point of contact, name, position, phone number, email address, simple information, the information that you've pretty much already got written down in your little notebook somewhere. It's not going to be any real difficult things to come up with. And once it's approved, you'll be contacted by, you're going to get bombarded with acronyms. The PDMG, which is the Program Delivery Manager, as well as that's the federal representative, and then the state will have a project officer. And I'll take the time now to introduce those. Mr. Rick Christian in the back. He'll be the manager heading this up and over all the project officers. And then Mark Harrington here, he will be following up with the private nonprofits. And he'll be helping each one of the private nonprofit organizations, and he is also going to be one of the deputies in this program. Sonia Grammer is over here. She'll be with the state agencies. So when we break up, well, I'll point them out again, and you can get with those folks. And Shanita Douglas, she will be the city and the county representatives for the for this disaster. And again, I'll do that at a later date, point them out again so you know who to meet with after this is over. So this is kind of an idea of how it's going to flow in the next few weeks. You're going to start doing, this is the flow chart of how the process will start and kick off. So once your RPA is approved, FEMA assigns a PDMG, state will assign a project officer, and we already have structure in place. We have a PDMG that's going to complete an exploratory call. You'll get a phone call from someone who will just kind of kick the ball off. They'll let you know who they are, what their roles are going to be, and what they're going to be able to help you with and not help you with. If there's any further information needed, then they will ask for it at that time. And then from there, you go to, or the applicant completes the initial damage inventory. Captures all the disaster-related damages, submits to the grants portal, initial damage inventory submitted before recovery scoping meeting. So this is where it's going to start getting a little bit more in depth. We're going to need to know, what are we asking for? What are we talking about? What's our cost, and what's things that we're going to be putting on this project worksheet for reimbursement. So it's going to get a little bit more in depth, and you're going to have to do some more back and forth. There'll be several meetings that could have to accomplish the needed information to come in. But that's the next step, is to complete the damage inventory. And Mark, then they conduct a recovery scoping meeting. This is when you really have got a good product. You know what you're going to be doing. You know what you're going to need for documentation. The special considerations we talked about earlier. Site inspections, if that's going to be necessary, is going to be discussed. And then the 60-day calendar. We really want to push this 60-day calendar. We really want to try to get this wrapped up, and expectation of 60 days to do this. That's when that clock's going to start, trying to get 60 days. So everything will be tracked in this grants portal system. So everything will be looked. You can monitor the progression of it, to what step it is in the process of getting obligated, and to know when those fundings will start becoming available. So, who should be your applicant agent? Well, I'm assuming it's you who are here. But if not, someone who can develop and the scope, who can identify those damages, who can answer a lot of the questions, or at the very least knows where to go get those answers. They need to be familiar with a computer. Well organized is always a plus, and available for this process. It is time consuming for the first little while. It's not going to take every hour of your day up, but it's going to take some time, and be able to change hats rapidly, and get on the calls, get in the meetings, and we're going to stay with you, and we're going to help you the best way we can, but we're going to need some input from you as the applicant as well. As mentioned, this model, it will take some time and responsibility of the applicant, but do not ever get frustrated and feel like you're sinking. Call us, let us know. If we need to have somebody come and sit with you and help you through this, if it takes a day, it takes 2 days, we'll have someone come sit with you and help you do this. But again, let's keep things rolling, keep it moving. We want to get things moving, and so we can get money back out there to you to lessen the pain. Pace and priority. We're going over some of these time limits and some of these expectations. 60 days for getting documentation in, 30 days for your RPA. So we're going to beat you up with time. We're going to email you a lot, and we're going to call you a good bit and saying, we're just trying to help you. We're just trying to get the money out there, and sometimes that's the best way to do it, and we're going to be there right with you and helping you, push you through. Please don't get frustrated. We know FEMA's an applicant. We're out here too, so we know what you're going through. But it is for good reasons that we all those emails and phone calls that you'll be getting. So this is an emergency declaration. This is just for those Category B projects. Right now, that's what we're talking about. Category B only. If anything else, we'll discuss it down the line. But right now, Category B only. Emergency protective measures. We're going to let you know more detail what that is. If you have a question, something specific, bounce it back to us. We'll give you an answer on it. We'll let you know whether it is or whether it isn't. We may just have to elevate it up to get a better answer from somebody else, and that's okay. But we're going to work it, and we're going to get it out there, and we're going to try to get you back to as normal as you can possibly be through this program. It's not to make you whole. It's 75%. It's a reimbursement, but we're here to help get you back to as close to normal as you can be. People that you may want to have on your list of contacts: Stephen McGraney, the director; Clayton French, our deputy director. Mr. French, you want to wave at everybody? And then me, Mike Seiler. I'm a public assistance officer for the state of Mississippi. August 30th and continue. We will let you know when it is not continuing anymore. We'll let you know what that date is. Declaration date, August the 30th. And why is that important? Is because of this. They got a 30-day deadline. Please. I don't know. I've said I've got to be hitting half a dozen times, right? 30 days, September 29th. Please have that RPA in if you want to be a part of this. So what we're going to do now, and I failed to introduce some of my FEMA partners. Michael Phillips, you want to raise your hand? This is one of the IBDs. Again, plenty of acronyms for FEMA. This is Marlene Dawkins, who will also be representing the FEMA folks. Alan Jarvis, this is the FEMA man on the ground here. So if there's anything we can do to help you out, we will. I guarantee you, on the state side. I know most of the people personally on the FEMA side that we're all here to help you. We want this to be a success. We want it to roll out and get things taken care of and done. So with that, I'm going to draw this off. We'll break up into individual groups, get a little bit more one-on-one time of who you'll be dealing with on a regular basis. So if you're a private nonprofit, this gentleman right here will be the individual to come see. If you are a state agency, this young lady right here. And if you are a city or a county, this young lady right here. So feel free to get them. They got their cards with you. Their cell phones with them more than they want them to be. So just feel free to use those contacts, and I'm always available to answer any questions that I can. All right? Thank y'all.